What's up, Average Joes? Today I want to talk about some winter reads recommendations. So, how's it going out there? What's up? It is Christmas season. Yes, for me, it is Christmas season. But it's getting into winter. So, winter, some of us like to have some atmospheric reads. Where at least for the northern hemisphere, it will be winter. So it's time to get into some wintry reads to kind of enhance the winter experience, I guess, if you want, or if you're spending more time inside in general, it's nice to maybe have some winter reads, and especially if you're not like right now, I don't live somewhere very cold, so reading books that have like a cold or wintry type setting is kind of nice because you can kind of artificially pretend like it's really winter even if it's not actually winter. So if you live in the south, you won't get super cold, whether there or plenty of places that don't really experience too much of winter or snow for that matter. So these are going to be books that have a wintry-esque feel or atmosphere, or like largely they take place in a snowy area. That's kind of like the theme of this. So I just have a few books recommendations for that in case you want to try these out. Now, I know if you watched my previous video on reading plans, I say to not start in a new series. This is pretty much going to be a large contradiction to that. So, but again, make your own decisions. I just give out my 2 cents. Some people have already started a bunch of new series this month, so hey, do whatever works best for you. But winter is more than just the end of the year. Winter will go until February, March. Some people April and May, depending on how far north you live. So I'm just going to talk about some good wintry type reads, not necessarily holiday Christmas feel good, because most of the time the feel good Christmassy books are either going to be in the middle grade realm, or like it's going to be like a Hallmark movie. Side note, side story on that is last year I ordered a Christmas themed book box. It came with like a bookmark, a candle, some other things, and it said, "Oh, 2 books." And this website that you ordered off of typically sends like fantasy books. It's like, okay, cool, we're gonna get 2 wintry type fantasy books. And they were like the most Hallmarky type books that you would find on like a movie on the Hallmark channel. And I would pick these up and I was just like, nope. And I gave them to my wife and she read them and then gave them to her mom. So my wintry type reads with wintry atmospheres to get into. So I've mentioned this before. Green Glass House 100% is a fantastic read for this. You can just read there. It is a series, but it's not. I guess you could say yes, it is a series. The first 2 books 100% are qualified for this. They both take place during Christmas. I believe it's set in Canada or somewhere up far north. It doesn't really specifically say, but I'm pretty sure it's Canada. I forget why I thought that. But anyway, it's set far north, super snowy, very, very deep snows. I think in the first book, they actually get caught in a snowstorm or something, like they're stuck in the house for the snowstorm or something like that. There's this mystery in the house, and the little kid, Milo, I think he's like 8 or 7 or 8. He's trying to solve this mystery and like why all these strangers have showed up at this inn, because they own an inn, they own and run an inn. So he's trying to figure out why all these people showed up on Christmas, because typically it's very slow on Christmas. People don't go there, maybe 1 or 2 people, but they filled up and they're all there for the same purpose. So that's the setup for book 1. And he's discovering things about the house, and he has a teammate that he pairs up with, and they're discovering all these secrets about the house because it's super old and it used to be a house that smugglers used. And then the next year there's a follow-up story, and some of the same characters repeat that were in the inn. They come back the following year and there's an entire new mystery. These carolers come along, and there's like stories that go back with the history of the carolers. There's some ghosts. It's actually called Ghosts of Green Glass House, and there's a mystery behind the carolers and the myth with this headdress that they wear, and this act that they put on, and all these things that are going on. So it's really good because it's super snowy, very cold. It takes place around or on Christmas, and Christmas Eve is all very atmospheric that way. And I think it's a very fantastic read. The mysteries are very good as well. They pull you in, and they're not like super duper short like you would think a lot of these middle grade books would go, but it's a very good book, very good read that you can definitely get lost into. The next one would be Truly Devious. And this one I've recommended and mentioned in the past of how it's good to read in the fall into winter. So like October, November, December type thing. I think you could do one each month. We're already in November, so a little late for that, but you can still pick it up because it is very atmospheric. This takes place in like upstate New York, and there is like this very selective school that these kids are going to. It is, sits on this like huge, it's like this huge mansion that they turned into a school. And there is a murder that happened on the first book, and then it parallels a murder that happened like 80 years in the past for the person that actually created this school and created this house. It was their house. And so in the first book, you're going flashbacks with the past. Actually, throughout the entire series, you're doing flashbacks with the past and with now to see how the parallels work and how history is repeating. And the main character, she is a studies this university, knows everything about this university, and she wants to go into solving crimes and sort of solving mysteries. So she is taking it upon herself to solve this mystery, and she's discovering again a lot of secrets about this house and everything. And it is very atmospheric. The first book takes place, and when they start the school semester, it turns into fall, and then the second book is fall into winter. It starts to get cold and snowy, and then at the end of the second book, I think a big snowstorm might come. But I know the third book largely takes place in the middle of a giant snowstorm, and they actually get stuck at school. Some have to evacuate and leave, but either way, very wintry, very atmospheric, and you can segue right into it. The mystery really, really pulls you in. Like we read the first book and it was really good. Then we picked up the second and third book, and I think I read the second and third book in across a weekend because I just had to figure it out, had to go through. Very, very good trilogy, mystery. I think it's in the YA realm. It's not middle grade, but it's for a large audience. Next one would be Sword of Kygen. This is a big book that came out last year, and it is a standalone fantasy, fairly big. And I won't do that great of a job explaining it. I know a lot of people have already talked about it in the past. There is this like it's Asian inspired, East Asian inspired, maybe Japanese inspired, and there's this older village that that the story takes place in. They live up in the mountains, so it's very cold there. But also the magic they use is surrounded by ice. It's like ice and snow. They use is the kind of magic that this village has, and they are a village of warriors. They've all been breeding warriors, and they're the warriors for the kingdom, for the emperor. Outside of that village, it's actually normal society that we would know, normal cities, normal technology, everything like that. But this village has been like isolated and so shunned that they just stick to the old ways so much that the new ways haven't really been brought in, but they still have their same warrior teaching, their warrior training. And a huge battle happens for reasons I won't say, but this huge battle happens. People are kind of invading. There's a lot of killing, there's a lot of death, and then there's a lot of fallout afterwards. What makes this one unique is because after the battle ends, you still have like a quarter of the book left for the fallout of after everyone dies, after they're trying to rebuild, they're trying to figure out what the heck happened, who these people were, and all these things. So very unique in that way, but it is on a mountain, ice magic, very cold setting. So very great for the winter type setting. Next, I want to go with Red Queen's War. This is a trilogy by Mark Lawrence. It is in the same world as his Broken Empire series. This one with Prince of Thorns. Very, very awesome trilogy. But Red Queen's War, it's a bit on the lighter side of it. And it takes place, the main character is this prince who's I think the first book's called the Prince of Fools, who's just this lazy dude who does nothing, and he's just a prince and is living off of his money, and just wants to sit around and do nothing. And he gets paired up with this Viking who he freed from like from pits, and the Viking's trying to get back to his homeland to save his family. Meanwhile, the prince follows him because there's some sort of like entity that was trying to kill him back in the city, and the Viking saved him. So he's just escaping, trying to stay with him. But they go up into the atmospheric part is they go up into the north to this because this Viking is from up there, and that's when it becomes very, very cold. They're always living out on the land, and it's very cold. They get to very snowy, icy areas where this person lives, where this Viking is from. And in the first book and in the second book, it is a very cold setting. And a lot of times in these Renaissance type settings anyway, it's very, very cold. It's just they just always throw that in there because that's kind of how that area is. But that's why this one is good for that. It's a little bit lighthearted. It is definitely adult fantasy, but it's much lighter than the Broken Empire series. Next one will be Kings of Paradise or Kings of Ash. This one I've talked about a lot on my channel, so I won't go too much into it because I do have a why you should read on this series. One of my favorite all time now. One of the aspects of this series is that there are two POVs and two worlds, and they basically don't know each other. Except one of them is like in a very tropical Mediterranean type environment. The other one is very, very, very cold. Their winters are really, really bad. Even their summers are very cold. And it's a very cold setting. It's always very snowy. And that is why this one would fit, because one of the main characters is actually the one that is from the south, which is actually the cold zone, not the north. So a little flip flop there. But he's from the cold region, and it is very cold. And there's a lot about the cold with this. And even the very first chapter, the very first paragraph is shows him doing something very, I guess, somewhat drastic to stay alive, to stay fed, because it is so cold, and food can be very scarce in the winters and in this harsh climate. So there's a little bit about survival in there, and how, you know, the main character was an outcast for a while and how he's trying to survive. And that's the environment that you get. So it's going to be a bit more darker and harder hitting, and more on the adult side, with some survival to it, but there still has that cold feels while reading this, and you definitely get that in this. All right, changing from fantasy, we're going to Chestnut Man. This one is one of my favorite thrillers that I read last year. Fantastic murder mystery thriller. It is a Scandinavian written. I don't know what nation exactly, but it's Scandinavian either way. And it is really, really, really good. My wife also really loved it. It's a little bit longer than your typical thriller, which might lend itself to be like, it helps it be a lot better, because you can get more into the characters, you can build a lot more tension. The mystery is very, very good. We didn't solve it or figure out who the heck did it until like the page before it happened. But there's this person going around killing, I think he's killing females, but every time they kills them, he leaves a little chestnut man. So like it's like two chestnuts stuck together with matchsticks as hands and legs, and they're trying to catch him. And it's just a really, really, really well done mystery. You get some flashbacks in the past as to how and why this person was there, or starting to kill people, and they're how other people tie into it. And then, you know, it's very, very well done. And of course, Scandinavian setting. I think it's either setting in Denmark or Sweden, and it's very cold up there. And at the very end, I think they're outside. There's definitely a snowy feels. But yes, Chestnut Man 100%. Because also it's a thriller. They go usually pretty quick, and it's just a one off. So I think all of these others are technically parts of series, which, you know, whatever. But this is a, you know, it's a thriller, so it's just one book. Last one is a trilogy. I'll just say book one, Half a King. This is the first book in Joe Abercrombie's Shattered Sea trilogy, and I just want to say that I really love this trilogy a lot. And it seems like this one doesn't get talked about or liked enough, and that's, I think it's because this is also a pet peeve of mine. Slight tangent. People will read for her First Law, absolutely love it. First Law gets all of the praise, and they go, okay, I'm going to go read his other series and expect more of the First Law, and then they don't get exactly the same as First Law, because it's a little bit of a younger audience, but not by much, and they're just disappointed, and people bash it because it's not First Law. But like, you know, hey, authors aren't always going to write the same thing in the same world. You got to recognize this. So I think it is a fantastic trilogy. It does something very unique throughout the trilogy, in that every book in the trilogy is from a different POV. So the first book is this prince, and he's called Half Prince because he gets his hand chopped off in the very beginning. This isn't a spoiler. I think it's even in the synopsis, but either way, it happens like first or second chapter. And then he's sold into slavery, and he's on a rowing ship, and there's a lot of cold moments where they're on the ship, and then they go north, and they're stuck in the snow and the cold and trying to survive in that climate for a very long time. So that's why this one gets a very good nod for winter, because there is that winter survival element in here. And then to tell you more about the series, so the first book is he is the main POV, that prince. And then the second book, you take on two other new POVs, but they are working with the one from the first one, or or some other people from the first one are still in the background and around the same area as those two people. And then the third book also has new POVs, but they have carryover characters from the past books. So they all line up. They're all in the same area. They all have familiar characters, ones that survive into other books. It's different POV, so you see characters that you already know from a different perspective. So it's very, very cool in that way. The second book was fantastic. I think is the best. The first two books are fantastic. The third one went down a little bit for me, but still a very good trilogy. It is YA, but it's Joe Abercrombie YA, so there's still some pretty dark moments. I mean, the main character loses his hand in the first chapter, so it's going to be, that's how it's going to be. But those are my winter read recommendations. They're a bit, some of them are a bit on the darker side. I've got a middle grade, a 2 YA, some thriller. The other ones are basically adult fantasy. That's just what I know. That's just what I read. I do want to broaden my horizons a little bit more. I have some other snowy, wintry books scheduled. Obviously, Harry Potter is a fantastic books to read around now. I wanted to read the illustrated edition of Goblet of Fire because I own that, but I don't think it's going to be in the cards this year. But either way, I can always do that next year. So yeah, what are some of your winter reads? Whether do you prefer feel good winter reads or just the atmospheric of winter and winter survival and cold and snow? Let me know how you lean with your reading around the holidays, around winter. You want it to be a little darker, a little harsher? What you got to read for winter books? Let me know in the comments, and we can chat more there.